Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The manhwa starts by showing us two men, and one of them kneeling in front of the other, who walks forward dragging his blood-soaked sword across the ground. He says it's funny that even he who was a hero ended up like this. If only he considered his safety from the comfort of his home, such a tragedy like this never would have happened. We learn that the kneeling man's name is Hayden Reich, and he is also called the Fallen Star. The man with the sword is called Julian. As Hayden asks him how he could do this to him, Julian says that he should have treated him better when he was supporting him as a hero. Hayden asks if he's really going to kill his master so heartlessly. Julian smiles slightly and then begins laughing as he raises his sword high into the air. He says that won't be difficult at all, and he cuts Hayden's head clean off. As it all fades to black, we hear a man screaming as he's holding onto his head. He starts grabbing his monitor, saying that this can't be, and he can't believe that Hayden just died so meaninglessly. As that should not have happened, we finally get some lore on Hayden Reich. He was the hero of the Northern Front Line, who led everyone even in the most desperate situations. He's a genius when it comes to hunting demons, and a legend that is nobility in and of itself, and most importantly, he is the protagonist of the game that he loves playing. So how could the protagonist just die like that? And by the hands of the villain who betrayed his own master, Julian no less. He says that the company, who is called Fromwell, is betraying him and his expectations because they mentioned making a sequel, yet they killed his boy off like that. And he spent so much time and money on this game, and we learn that his name is Lee Si-Hu, and he is rank 1, and he has played 100,000 hours of this game. I guess the 100,000 hours is probably in-game time rather than real-life hours. So why don't you tell him that grass exists? Some of the comments even mention how Julian is probably the protagonist of the sequel, but they don't know why anybody would want someone with his appearance to become the protagonist. They call him Slit Eyes, but I don't believe it's racist. I think it's just them calling him Sly. Si-Hu has a differing opinion and says that he's nothing but a traitor, and he doesn't understand why he would be the protagonist, and he's gonna go ahead and cancel his pre-order. He hovers over the button and hesitates for a second before clicking it, actually canceling his order. And he says that he's had some fun times with the game, which is called Kill the Demon King starting now, but he never wants to have anything to do with it again. He lays in bed, saying that shit was a complete rip-off and a waste of time, but no other game has graphics that good in such a vast world. It helped with his depression because he was pretty jaded by reality after starting his first job. He sits up in bed, sighing, saying that it was a way for him to get away, and then he picks up his plant, saying that it's all he has left. And when he's upset, he'll feel much better when he looks after it, and he sees why old people like to grow orchids now, and he hopes the plant grows well. As he's watering it, he hears a notification and starts wondering what that is. And it's a message from the game development company, Fromwell. They double-check that he's the one who's played their game for the last 5 years. Continuing, he wonders if this is some kind of automatic reply, so he replies, and they ask if he's not satisfied with how the story unfolded, and if that's why he cancelled his pre-order. This catches him off guard, and he says that this makes it seem like they don't want to give him a refund. And then he gets another notification, and he wonders what it is, and it tells him to go ahead and click the link below. He does exactly that, as a bright light appears on his screen. His glasses are sucked off his face, and he begins to get pulled into his monitor. He says that he needs to cut this shit off now. He reaches for the power button and holds it down, but it doesn't do anything. And he continues to get sucked into his monitor until it cuts off on its own. He wonders what's happening, and if he's falling, but the question is where is he falling? As he looks around, it's all black, but after a bit, he sees a wasteland in front of him, and he crashes down straight into it. He struggles to sit up, asking where exactly he is, but he recognizes it instantly as the place where both Hayden and Julian last fought. A scorpion begins running towards him, attacking at him with one of its pincers. He recognizes it as the scorpion demon that appears in the game. On cue, his stat window then opens, showing that he's an exceptional swordsman and has incredible instincts. He's surprised by the window and starts screaming while running, saying that this is all he can do for now. But the scorpion doesn't give him any room, as it continues catching up to him, and he realizes with how easily it's destroying the ground, he's cooked if he gets hit. As it gets closer and closer, he screams and puts his hand up, worried that he's about to die. But when it attacks him, It doesn't even draw blood, and he wonders why it doesn't hurt at all. It starts coming in for a follow-up, and he ducks underneath it and grits his teeth, realizing that he might as well try fighting back in this case. So he hits it with an uppercut. It starts to stagger a bit, and he realizes that his attack worked, and he's so confused with what's going on, as his body has never been this light before. He then realizes what's going on, as there was a message we didn't get to see earlier. It was Frommel who asked for him to change the story himself, and that he is doing character repossession. As he begins running away from the scorpion, assuming that he is Hayden, the scorpion screeches while leaping forward, and he turns, saying that he still doesn't know what's going on. But he reaches down, grabbing onto his blade, widening his stance, and he grits his teeth, saying that he's just fortunate enough that the character he possessed was none other than Hayden, the character that he spent thousands of hours playing. As he swings his blade forward, aura starts to come out of it, flying directly towards the scorpion, splitting it almost completely down the middle, but killing it instantly regardless, even shattering the ground. He says that's crazy, and as expected of Hayden's strength. He looks down at his hands, saying with this, he might be able to change the story and help prevent him from being killed by Julian, which is a fate, which is a story he hated. A notification then appears, saying that he has obtained the common attack called Crescent Slash, which is part of his swordsmanship foundation. This starts to confuse Sihu a little bit, and he says that this isn't actually Hayden's skill. Then he starts to have an idea of what's going on. As he takes off his hoodie and looks down at the sword to get a good look at his own reflection, he realizes that he is not actually in possession of Hayden's body, but someone else entirely. The status window says that his character's appearance has silver hair, a poker face, and slit eyes. That's the translation, don't flame me. He also has the Demon King's vessel, exceptional swordsman, immaculate mana control, and incredible instincts. As he is none other than Julian Crippert plus own. And he screams, saying that he can't believe this is who he possessed, rather than Hayden. You can read through his character tendencies and traits if you would like. It then jumps to some very fancy estate. As we see Julian in the mirror, I'm going to call him Julian because that is who he is now. He's still just in disbelief that he's possessed his body, and then tries to open his eyes as wide as they go. I guess the slit eye thing wasn't racist. His eyes are just very narrow. He says there's no way this is as much as it goes, and he can't believe that he has to live like him, and that it's been about a week since he started doing so. He tried returning back to reality, but everything he did was futile, and he couldn't escape the nightmare. He lets out a sigh because he is exhausted. He then explains how one of his character traits means that he speaks with respect in all languages, so even though internally he's saying something different, it comes out with him being very formal. He starts to smile, saying that's not all too bad, because he thinks he's pretty good looking, and he understands why Julian was so popular to begin with. He starts talking about having a small head. It's some Korean thing that I don't understand. It then jumps once more to somebody's leg shaking, and the dude looks hella nervous, saying that he doesn't want to go because he doesn't want to meet Julian, because it feels as if he's walking into his own grave. He opens the door and calls out to Julian, and we learn that his name is Sir Horrend. Julian recognizes him, saying that he's a direct blood relative. He asks if his body is okay. Julian says yes, and it's thanks to him that he's been well. Horrend says that's a relief, and he can't believe that he fainted, and he says that he doesn't know if he was too worried, and then sits there and awkwardly laughs, which is giving me some severe second-hand embarrassment, as each one wonders what the other is up to. Julian says that he thought it would be some random guy, but Horrend himself came to visit, and he just wonders what Julian has been doing. But Horrend says that seeing how relaxed he is, even when he's come to visit himself, he sure is not an easy guy to handle. He wonders if he should try testing him, so he decides to tell him that he heard a rumor. Julian asks what it was. So Horrend tells him that there's a rumor that he's lost his memory. This is a surprise to him, and he wonders, but says that it kind of makes sense because everybody was whispering when they saw him, and it did seem suspicious. Horrend wonders if he's taken aback by this. Julian then calls out his name, which sends a shiver down his spine, and he asks if Horrend himself also believes the rumor, and bro just looks like a straight villain. Horrend starts to freak the hell out, and his heart starts to go crazy, and he says there's no way he would. He starts to realize that his plan has backfired, but in reality, he starts to mistake his evil as face for him fully understanding why exactly he's here, and that he's under the Noble Elders Association's orders. and there's no helping it, so he clears his throat, telling him not to take the rumors spreading among the maids too seriously, and he says he's going to get to the reason why he's here. Although he knows Julian is injured, the Elders Association had a message, so he came to deliver it. We learn that the Elders Association is something that the nobles created. They've always regarded bloodline as important, and the direct bloodline oldies wouldn't just stand still if a collateral family member tried to grab power. And since that is exactly what Julian is, they're a little worried about him. But even if Julian is part of the collateral family, he still considers himself the royal family's dog, and due to his outstanding swordsmanship and magic ability, he is considered a thorn to this organization to the point that they want to get rid of him ASAP. A message from them means that he should definitely be careful. He asks what the message is, and Horan hesitates a bit, saying that he needs to participate in the Shut Eyes entrance test as an instructor. Julian thinks about it and explains that Shut Eyes is actually an important group, as they secretly carry out missions from the palace and normally act as the royal guard. They're an exclusive organization where people with incredible martial force gather, and Julian is already a part of that group, and the people who look disfavorably upon him chose him, which is a bit suspicious, and he wonders if he should even listen to the request in the first place. Horan smiles, saying that normally Julian would catch on to the Elders Association tricks and avoid doing this, and he has to start thinking about how to convince him. Julian instead says okay, and he'll go as the supervisor, which confuses the hell out of Horan to the point that he almost fades out of existence. He tells him that his injury is too much, but Julian tells him that it just happened to be healed, as he takes his bandage off. Horan panics because he realizes he's serious and says that he's taking the bull by the horns, but of course it's because Julian doesn't know well, so he wants to try to curry some favor. As Horan starts to leave because he has no idea what Julian is going to plan after this, he wants to create some distance, but Julian tells him to wait a second, and Horan starts to panic, wondering if he's going to not let him go. He turns around, telling him to wait, but Julian sticks his hand out, holding a plant, saying that he just wanted to give him this, as it's going to give him some peace of mind, and of course bro looks evil as hell. Horan leaves the room looking defeated, and his legs are shaking hella bad to the point that he even falls to his knees and starts panting out of pure fear. He says that he completely forgot the nickname that Julian possessed, which is the Smiling Executioner, and he can totally understand why he was given it. Julian then sighs, saying that he's dealt with one of them, and it's all because his room is full of orchids, and he's trying to get rid of them because he said it while he was asleep. He says that somebody must be waiting for him without saying who, of course, and grabs his blade, saying that if it's Julian, he won't do something as idiotic as going outside without the sword, and if he's going to go out, he should dress nicely. He opens his closet, surprised about this, and he says that Julian's style of clothes is a little crazy, and he hates it, but he needs to act perfectly as Julian not to draw any attention. He opens the door, telling Horan that he's ready, as he can't wait to head out to the interview. Julian asks him to go ahead and tell him where it'll take place. It jumps to a carriage riding in a forest, as Horan says that as he said earlier, the enrollment test for Shut Eyes will be carried out on the training grounds of Vile Academy. Julian says that Vile Academy was not an important location in the game, but he does recall it. He says that he wonders what kind of place it is, which catches Horan off guard because he thought he was already familiar with that place, since Julian himself is from Vile Academy after all. Julian says he wasn't aware of that, and says that it has been pretty long, and he's sure it's changed quite a bit. And he plays it off. Horan says that he sees. He says the academy that he went to might be a bad place to visit, especially if there's someone who recalls Julian from that time. So he hopes that there's nobody like that there anymore. The carriage comes to a stop, and the carriage driver tells both Horan and Julian that they have now arrived at the Vile Academy. Julian says it sure is large, and he's only ever seen it in the game. Horan asks what he just said. And Julian laughs it off, saying that he didn't say anything. Poor Horan is scared. But of course, Julian is freaking out, saying that even the amazing graphics in the game can't beat reality, no matter how close it was. But Horan just thinks that he's scary, and he wonders why he's scheming to make him act like this. Julian can tell he's scaring him and says that he feels pretty bad. He then calls out to him, which startles him even more. And Julian says that he can leave if he wants, and he's grateful that he escorted him here. Horan says that he wants to see how the test will be run since he's here. But Julian says that he thought he was dying to get out of here, so it's strange that he wants to stay. And that there's a pretty weird thing going on with Horan because there's an ominous aura that he can see overhead. He wonders if it's mana, but even if it was, it's definitely not his mana or power. And maybe it's an emotion. Rather, maybe it's fear itself. He opens his status window that says he is super sensitive to negative emotions that are directed towards him, and he is able to judge the emotion by the color of the negative emotion's aura. And he says that was exactly what it was, it's indeed fear. And now that he thinks about it, Julian was always very good at catching others' emotions in the game too. And he was especially good at utilizing people's fear. He would win a fight using fear without actually having to fight. And he also used anger so that the opponent would lose sense of reason and make more mistakes and won. And he assumes that this is all possible, thanks to this trait that he has. And that the reason Horan isn't leaving despite being scared, rather the fact that he's here with him, must mean that the Elder Association ordered him to keep an eye on him. And he starts to wonder what exactly they're scheming because he understands that they consider him a thorn in their side. But he understands it a bit after all, because Julian is really infamous, and he's sure they want to get rid of him. Now there are even rumors spreading that he's lost his memories, and it would be the best time for the association to do something about him. Of course, he can't let that happen, and he needs to survive and return to real life. Someone bumps into him and immediately goes to apologize. When he opens his eyes, he sees Julian smiling at him. And since he has a villain's face, the dude falls to the ground screaming in a panic. Julian realizes this isn't a good thing, as everybody else wonders why the crazed dog of the royal family is here. And they think that he's done for, since he's bumped into none other than Julian. Horan tells Julian to calm down, since he's just a kid, but Julian hasn't even done anything yet. But he can relate too, because he also despises Julian because he killed his favorite character. But everyone here also has an intense fear of him, which he can sense. And he can also tell that a little below it is anger as well. He wonders why Julian couldn't have been just a little bit nicer. As it's not good if he is this conspicuous, so he has to calm the students down somehow. We then hear a woman greet him, and when he looks up towards her, he's a little taken aback as she's right into his face, and he recognizes her as a woman named Eileen. Her full name is Eileen Doneshan, and she's one of the main characters that appear in the game. She's an instructor of the Vile Academy, who's affiliated with the Adrithan Empire's Mage Tower. She's a genius mage who is able to handle the metal element out of the 5 elements, at the 5th tier, all at the young age of 24. And she gave Hayden plenty of advice in the Academy arc, but he wonders why exactly she is here greeting Julian, and how they know each other. He rubs his neck, deciding to go along with it, and says that he should lighten up the atmosphere. But then he notices the aura emanating off of her, and he starts to wonder if maybe it's fear or anger. But instead, he understands now that it's none other than resentment. But he wonders why, and just what the hell he did to piss off somebody like her. Since she's an advanced mage, he doesn't want to stand out and get killed by her, so he needs to think of a way to calm the situation. And he asks who gave a halfling such as herself permission to speak to him. Her resentment continues, but of course, she doesn't say anything, and it gets very awkward. And he starts crying internally, saying that that is not what he wanted to say at all, and it didn't help his case whatsoever, and that this might be a bit much. He reaches for his blade, asking if her being a halfling also means that she only has half of her hearing. So he decides to lean into the role of the villain, and he unsheathes his blade, asking if she has any idea what kind of noise a person makes when they die. As Julian starts to step forward, he starts to laugh internally, saying that she must be scared, and now he can calm her down, but instead it's the opposite reaction as she begins to release her mana, asking if he's drawing his blade, saying even if it's him, he shouldn't be acting this way towards students and professors, and this is an act of violence against the entirety of the academy, and she will not forgive him for this. Bro's plan was cooked from the start, he did not even think about it. And of course, since she hates him, she tells him to prepare himself, as she's not going to be an easy opponent. But he didn't want this, and he just wanted to scare her off a bit. Eileen takes the initiative by charging forward, putting her hands together to prepare for some kind of spell, but Julian manages to block it with his blade, and he even deflects it to the ground, shattering it. He starts to wonder if they are actually fighting right now, but she's just pissed that he's looking away in the middle of their fight. She yells, telling the students to get away from this area immediately. They look worried, but decide to listen to her, and even Horan starts running away, asking what the hell is going on, and he should have left when Julian told him to. While she's distracted, we hear Julian laughing, saying that she shouldn't be looking away from him. As he charges in close, she puts up a magic barrier, which he shatters, and he says that looking away in the middle of a fight is dangerous. She starts to get embarrassed and flustered, and sticks her hands out, casting yet another spell, which he has to bob and weave from, and decides to create some distance. He says that those were some scary ass attacks, and it feels as if she's putting her actual emotions into them. We see her starting to panic internally, because she didn't intend for them to be fatal, but he dodged every single one of her attacks, which she expected no less of Julian. At one point, she thought of him as the ideal noble. As we see him talking to a bunch of other students back in school, and the girls were fawning over him, saying that he's more charming than any of the other nobles. And even Eileen, back when she was a freshman, was taken away by his looks. She thought he was so cool and handsome, and that he was truly the epitome of a noble. Not only does he have a lot of connections, he is regarded as a rising star of the empire with his swordsmanship. As she continued to stare at him in the hallway, she tightened the grip on her book, and she says that whenever she looks at him, she gets hope that the fact she's from a collateral line won't hold her back. And that Julian's somebody she used to look up to, and she truly believed that he could change society's prejudice towards those from collateral lines. Back then, she couldn't tell apart respect from love, as she handed him a love letter, and we could see her hands were shaking, and she ended up getting rejected. And it's a core memory that she cringes about hell often. Just like all of your cringy memories. As she gets swept away with her emotions, she charges a powerful attack, shooting it directly towards Julian. He sidesteps it again, but of course it would have been hella bad if he hadn't. He says that was close, and he wonders why her face is so red, and if she's truly this pissed. But she just wants him to take a single hit, as that will relieve her anger. He realizes that he should start wrapping it up. He dashes behind her almost in an instant, and when she turns, it's too late, as he hits her in the back of the head with his hilt, but with just a slight tap, and he says they should stop playing around. She continues blushing, and she asks what the hell he thinks he's doing, and if he's looking down on her. He could have killed her if he really wanted to, as she felt enough mana coming from him, asking why he went easy, since he didn't even use the moonlight sword. He asks if she really wishes to know, and begins laughing, and she starts to mistake it, saying that maybe he's finally acknowledging her feelings after all this time, and she begins to blush even more. He says that it's Horan's first time here, so he can't show him where the training center is, and everyone else is also too scared to show him where to go as well. And if she understands, then she should lead the way for him. He calls her a halfling once more. She realizes that her expectations were just illusions, and can't believe that the reason was something as simple as this. As Julian starts walking, he says that the moonlight sword is something special to Julian. Normally when you cover a sword with aura, it is visible in the form of light surrounding the sword. However, Julian's sword is very special. The sword itself turns into a bluish color, making it seem as if it's holding moonlight within itself. And he used this sword countless times to kill demons, and after witnessing this, people have given it the name Moonlight Sword out of respect and fear. As such, the sword is the identity and source of Julian's power, so how could he possibly know how to wield it when he's not actually Julian? It's a bad sign that she's already starting to catch on, and this is pretty bad, so he has to make sure she doesn't figure out at all. So he starts determining himself, but Horan and Eileen mistake it as him scheming something. He asks if there's a problem, but they both instantly freeze, saying that it's nothing, and she continues leading him until they finally arrive at the training grounds of the academy. He opens the door, saying that he hopes everybody is doing well, and he apologizes for being a little late, as Eileen got sidetracked on her way here. She starts to get annoyed, but holds it back. Julian then introduces himself, and he says that he'll be in charge of conducting their entrance exam today. But he's sure everybody has heard of him before. Horan starts looking around, wondering where somebody is, and he spots exactly who he was looking for, saying that this is the second son of the Torso family, and he knew he would show up. The Torso family are famous for having been friends with the Krippert family for a very long time. It's generally deemed a high honor to be associated with the Shut Eyes, since they are directly affiliated with the Imperial family. But this also means that getting in is highly competitive, and the entrance exam is a battle between an instructor and the applicant. And during that process, if Julian brings the second son of the Torso family the dishonored defeat, the Elders Association will take this as an opportunity to bring him down. Julian says that it seems everyone here wishes to join the Shut Eyes, asking if he's correct. They say yes, sir, and he says that all he sees is a bunch of cowardly trash, and he starts laughing. He says that they all look naive, as if they've had easy upbringings, and the ornament they call swords just makes him laugh. And the Shut Eyes that they all wish to enter is the bloodiest place here within the Empire, and as their senior, he will give them an experience of how it will feel, and with that, they will start the entrance exam now. He grabs onto his blade, telling them that the acceptance criteria is none other for them to kill him. They start freaking out about this. He immediately starts cringing at what he just said, saying that now he's done it, and he only found out just now that the entrance exam is a duel. Horan warned him not to go easy on the kids. Running away was the only thing he could do during his fight against Eileen, and if he were to participate in an official duel, it might turn out awful because people would figure out that he's really weak, and since he's not using the Moonlight Sword, they'll think it was just a rumor and it never existed, or that maybe he actually did lose his memories. These are things that will probably happen. As he starts feeling even more pressure from the other students, he's also pressured because of Eileen. If he starts acting too suspicious, she might start attacking him as well, which means he could possibly not make it out of here. If that's the case, the best course of action is to taunt them straight off the bat. He starts yelling, asking everybody what's wrong, saying that it will only end if he dies or if there are no more applicants left. The kids start to look scared, and nobody makes a move at all until the first kid raises his hand shakily and says that he forfeits. A lot of the other students start doing the same thing, terrified, saying that they don't want to be here anymore. The kid from the Torso family realizes this is bad and grits his teeth, but decides to go with the flow because he too ain't want none of that smoke. Horan says there's no way this is happening, and every one of the kids have now forfeited. Julian starts covering his mouth laughing. Proud of himself, he turns and passes by Eileen and Horan, saying with this the exam is over, as no applicants remain. Internally he's happy as hell, saying that he did it. As expected, his vicious side helps him out in situations like this, but he wonders about Eileen, and if her fear towards him overcame her hatred. But instead, she's giving him a very foreign expression to him, as he can't sense any negative emotions at all. He wonders what the hell is going on. He starts to think maybe his skill isn't working, or if it's even possible for a trait to stop working all of a sudden. She starts biting her lip, saying that what he just did reminded her of the past, when he avoided unnecessary fights by intimidating his opponents instead. He doesn't understand that he can only see negative emotions, and not the positive ones. A little later, back at the Shut Eyes, Horan starts calling out to Julian, and even gets in front of him, telling him that he did good work, but Julian seemed to be having different thoughts, and puts his hands on his shoulders, which freaks him out, causing him to have an overwhelming sense of fear. Horan asks what's the matter. Julian says it's nothing, and it's he who did all the hard work, but he was just double checking if his skill still worked. Someone else then calls out to Julian super excitedly, saying that he was amazing back there, and Julian asks who he is. He introduces himself as Lazarus, and he says that it's an honor to meet him, and he is in charge of the administrative task here. But that the rumor about him losing his memories must have been false after all, as he finished the exam without having to fight any of the applicants. Julian is shocked at how much this dude can yap. Lazarus continues, saying that he heard that the second son of the Torso family was one of the applicants, but even that didn't stop him from not going easy on them, and as expected of him. Horan then gets surprised and asks if he's trying to point out that the second son of the Torso family failed the test. Lazarus says that's not what he meant at all, but Horan is pissed, asking how dare he act so arrogant for someone who's still in training, and he says that while knowing the relationship between the Torso family and the Krippert family. Julian tells Horan that he's misunderstanding something here, or maybe it's the Torso family that is the one that's truly misunderstanding, and that the Shut Eyes do not accept nobles in the first place. Since it is directly affiliated with the Imperial family, they only accept commoners or fallen nobles. Horan says that he himself is a noble though, and Julian reminds him that he is from a collateral line of the family. He is a halfling of the Krippert family, therefore he is a dog of the Imperial family, not the Kraffarts. So that means the second son of the Torso family took the entrance exam despite being aware that he couldn't get past the second screening round. He asks if the family is trying to teach their son through experience or something, or rather there was some other scheme involved in this entrance exam all from the start. Horan starts to shake hella bad, asking if it means that he really did know, and that though he knew it was a trap, and that he was affiliated with them, that he still let him accompany him. But Julian says there's no way that's true, and maybe it was just a simple misunderstanding, but Horan won't even make eye contact with him anymore, and Julian says otherwise it would be unfortunate for him. A bit later, he returns to his estate, and the maids start greeting him, welcoming him home, and as he walks by, they ask if he will be having dinner, but he says no, and then reminds them not to let anyone into their office. The maids say okay, and as soon as he gets into his office, he puts his sword on the table and lets out a big fat sigh, saying that from Horan's reaction earlier, it looks like the Elders Association really did scheme something for this after all, and he was lucky enough to not get caught by anyone today, but he wonders how much longer his luck will last. Then at some point, the association really could spot his flaws, and that would mean he would get kicked out of the family. He then looks down at his blade, saying the fact that he showed he couldn't use the moonlight sword really worries him, but it would be something that would be worth wielding because it means he'd have the power to overwhelm others. And if that's the case, as he tightens the grip on the blade, he says it might really be worth a try to unlock the power of the moonlight sword while he has the chance. He continues to pull out the blade, and then begins to analyze it. The aura fades off of it almost instantly, and all that's left is his reflection, and he says it's just as he thought, it won't activate. The trait that Julian has, exceptional swordsman, allows him to have no trouble with swordsmanship itself. The moment he grabs the sword's path becomes extremely visible to him. As he's looking at his stats, the exceptional swordsman trait pretty much says that he's been able to use a sword since he was born. If it's in the form of a sword, regardless of the type, he can wield it. But this isn't quite enough for him to wield the moonlight sword itself. There are countless people in the Empire who are as good as him, rather, as good as the actual Julian when it comes to swordsmanship. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of named characters alone, but the difference between them and Julian is obvious. There is an overwhelming disparity in skill when it comes to aura or mana use. This is the reason he could survive with a pathological way of thinking. And he wonders if there really is no hope for him to do it right now. If the mana were to flow backwards, his important organs could get destroyed because wielding mana is very dangerous. He's hesitant but decides there's no other way but for him to do it, because he has to prove himself eventually. If the concept of mana in the game and this world are the same, then he, who has played it for so many hours, already knows the method. As he starts concentrating his mana, he says that he needs to use the bit that's saved up in his heart and send it to the mana meridian. Of the 38 mana meridians, 6 are important gray veins, and of them, the great vein in the head is the essence of mana that connects his heart. So if he were to activate this area, it would be all he needs. Something then snaps inside of him, and when he opens his eyes, the aura starts flowing out of him, and he can feel it. As it's enveloping his body, he tightens the grip on his sword, saying that he just needs to relocate it to another place, which would be his blade. But as he's trying his hardest, the resistance is a lot more than he expected. But he knows this body has the ability to do it. And after a bit of struggling it turns to be a success. Kind of, because it only lasted for a second. He says while it has materialized, it is still weak. He says if he were to compare it to the moon, it would still be a crescent. But at least the moon has showed itself, and that's not that bad. The next day in the training area, he widens his stance and starts to unsheath his blade, and instantly cuts 3 practice dummies in half using the moonlight sword. And as they start to fall to pieces, we see it glowing along his blade. He says he has at least reached the skill level of a knight, only took a day damn. Now he just has to complete his moonlight sword, but his knowledge of the game is slowly running out, and he needs someone who knows him rather, Julian, because he needs to ask them for advice. One of the maids calls out to him, telling him that he has a guest. He wonders if Julian had any friends, but this is perfect timing. It's none other than Lazarus, who greets him, and he realizes that he was completely wrong, since it's just the tier 1000 yapper. Lazarus is just surprised that he remembered his name and says surely it's not because of his behavior yesterday. Julian asks how he's meant to forget someone who speaks so damn much, and he doesn't know if he's fearless or just stupid. So he asks him what brings him here. Lazarus says that it's simple, and he received an order from the commander to confirm the results of the entrance exam that was carried out at the academy yesterday from him. Julian is confused, saying that he thought he saw the results himself. Lazarus says that receiving the results from the interviewer and delivering them is part of the procedure. Julian says that sure is pretty inefficient, and it sounds like they're just getting him to do busy work. He says to report that there are 0 passes on the entrance exam. Lazarus says that he'll let the commander know immediately, but Julian freezes because he realizes something, telling Lazarus to wait. Confirming that he's going to head straight to the commander after this, Lazarus says yes. Julian says that he wants to do it himself then. Lazarus asks if he's serious. Julian says yes, and they can go to his carriage together, and he'll give him a ride. Lazarus starts to show some fear, asking if he perhaps made a mistake, saying that this is definitely because of yesterday. Julian says no, and he's just being considerate because he thought he might feel uncomfortable going back alone, and that Julian should have lived a kinder life. But since it's come to this, he should go ask for his advice, and he's sure that the commander knows Julian very well, and he'll make it so that the Krippert family can never scheme anything when Shut Eyes is related by putting in a word. It jumps to the headquarters, as a man barges into a door, telling the commander there's a problem. The commander asks what it is, as it must be something serious. The dude tells him that he has come himself, and the commander asks who he's talking about. He says it's none other than Julian, who's come in person. The commander starts to scoot his chair back a little bit, asking if he's really certain that it's Julian. It then jumps to the Adrithan Imperial Palace. Julian says that he never thought he would see this place with his own eyes. The continent of Rosinda is the main background of the game, and it is dominated by 3 major countries. The strongest of the 3 would be the Adrithan Empire, where Julian is currently residing. After the demon god Barbados was sealed away, the devastated countries gradually unified under a strong monarchy which rose to become a superpower, and the symbol of that strength is this majestic palace in front of him. On the inside, he is freaking out, saying that this is so crazy, but of course he keeps a poker face. Lazarus wonders why the hell he's cackling, as he finds him scary. He's also really concerned. Normally the only way to reach him would have been through his servants, but now he wants to directly report to the captain of the Shut Eyes, and he even brought someone like him along, and he wonders what his plan is. Other people notice Julian as well, saying that it's weird that he's here on his own, and they thought he was injured, but he seems fine, so maybe the memory loss rumor was just false. Lazarus says that this is a great honor, but he feels like he could pass out at any time, and Julian says that the palace is still very majestic. Lazarus is confused by why he's bringing this up, as Julian continues saying that since this is the first gate that everyone can access, the captain must be past the secured second gate. Lazarus says that this is true, but he wonders why he's saying all these things, as this is common knowledge. He starts to get a misunderstanding in his head, saying that this is none other than a test. Because of his face being all condescending, it's like he's trying to say that an incompetent trainee like him needs to be tested again, and if he doesn't guide him properly, he could get kicked out. But of course, Julian says that he's not sure if it's because his personal field of view is wider than in the game, but he can't even see where the Shut Eyes building is. He asks Lazarus what's wrong, and if he maybe feels ill. Lazarus says not at all. He's perfectly healthy, as it is a priority in the group. Julian wonders what else is wrong with them, but they continue past the gates, and Julian says they're here. Lazarus asks him if he passes, but of course, Julian has no idea what he's talking about. Lazarus says that he thought that was another test, and Julian says not at all, asking why he would even need to test him. Lazarus says that this means that he's already a qualified member of the Shut Eyes. But Julian just wonders why he's not answering his question, as Lazarus starts bowing to him, saying that if he will excuse him for a moment, then he runs off singing. Julian says that he sure is a strange person, and he doesn't know if he should have, and he should be saying this is the fake Julian. A man then approaches him, saying that the captain said he is welcome to come inside. Julian says that it's finally time for him to go meet his boss. We finally learn that the captain is named Odwin Balladeer, and he is the sole heir of the fallen Balladeer family. Odwin's strength and leadership are more than enough to earn him the position of captain. He is the only person who can unify and control the members of the Shut Eyes, who only follow orders from the imperial family. And he wonders just how charismatic he will be, as it's making him honestly a little nervous. He stands in front of the door and knocks, asking if he may enter. A woman tells him to enter, and when he does so, we see a small girl sitting on the chair doing paperwork. She welcomes Julian, saying that it's been a long time. Turns out that Odwin is actually a woman. She says that she was told that he was injured, asking if he's alright. Julian is confused, saying that he wasn't particularly interested in the shut eyes, so he didn't know, but that she is extremely tiny. Quite significantly at that. She is a small girl. He remembers that the captain had a smaller body, but he never thought it would be to this extent. And that instead of a woman, she would be more closer to a teenage girl. She then raises her finger, pointing it at him, saying that he was about to say that she's small as usual. He says of course not, but internally says that since she knew what he was thinking, she must know him well. Odwin asks how his injury is, saying she wants a report. Julian wonders what he should say, and that he should watch what he does say in front of her, because in the worst case, she could be suspicious of him, and even though he's Julian, he should still be respectful towards the captain. Since he is so loyal, he's practically their dog. He then decides to go with it, thanking her first and foremost for her concern, saying that it was not a mild injury, but it wasn't enough to hinder his loyalty towards the Empire. She's confused, and he wonders if maybe he said something wrong. She starts to think about it for a second, and then puts her hands on the desk and walks over towards him, saying that something feels off, asking if he's always talked this way. She then raises her sword up directly under his chin, saying that he feels like a stranger. Julian realizes this is bad, saying that based on the color of her emotion, which is negation, she is suspicious of him. As we see an oud-winish color emanating from her, he starts to panic, wondering how he's been treating his superior until now. He grabs onto the handle of her sword, and says for now he'll go on the offensive just like a villain would, asking if there's a problem. She asks if he really just put his hand on her sword, and says that he rarely ever comes to the headquarters himself, and whenever he does, he simply makes his report and leaves without saying another word, and he suddenly became so diligent. He says that she figured even Julian drew the line between personal and professional matters when it came to the shut eyes, but it seems that he had underestimated him. He says that he's been off duty for a while due to his injury, that's why he came to make a report in person on the matter. She asks if that's really the case, and he asks if she has a problem with that, since he needs to push forward shamelessly just like Julian would. He asks if she's planning to control, even when he's allowed to show up, as he puts his hand on her desk. She says that based on how he's acting, insubordinate the moment he returns, it seems that the rumors of his injury were just exaggerated. He says that it's true, but somehow it still pisses him off how she's being so direct towards Julian, and that she isn't an ordinary woman. Odwin sighs, telling him to proceed with his report, asking if there was anyone promising in the entrance exam. He said that there was not. She says that she expected as much, as he is a student of the Sword Saint Hayden after all, and ordinary talent would not be enough to impress him. But she's asking whether there was anyone skilled enough to qualify as trainees. He says there wasn't. She just seems surprised, asking if he's really telling her that he did not let a single person pass. He says that she's correct and laughs. She looks pissed, asking why that is, and he continues smiling at her, so she asks once more, wondering why. Saying that he really is insane, even though she's already aware of that, wondering why he would do such a thing, and that the shut eyes is short on manpower right now, so even one person would have helped. He says that just because they're short on manpower, doesn't mean they should accept nobodies. Not a single applicant was fit to join them. She says still, there might be talents out there that could prove to be useful after training. He says that's a waste of time, as they weren't talented enough to even become trainees. Although he was just trying to avoid fighting them. She says that he's impossible to talk to, and that he should get out of her sight now. He laughs, saying that before he does so, he wants to make a proposal. She asks what bullshit he's planning. Of course he's scared, but he needs to continue acting like Julian. He reaches into his uniform, and pulls out a paper, putting it on her desk. He says that he's identified the flaws of the current entrance exam, and organized them here. She starts reading it, asking what he means by flaws. He says that he just thought they didn't realize just what kind of place the shut eyes is. She asks if that's really the case, saying that she guesses it's true that applicants should be aware of where they are applying. And this better be worth her time. It says that when applying for the entrance exam, the shut eyes will not take responsibility for what happens. She laughs, saying this almost sounds like he'll be fighting them with the intention to kill them, asking if she's understanding this correctly. He begins laughing, and she says that based on his response, she's right. And it's true that with the exception of herself, Julian holds a relatively high position within the Shut Eyes, but he's never directly interfered with internal policies like this before. She seems to be thinking about it, asking if this is why he did not let anyone pass through the entrance exam, wondering if he didn't want any trouble after hurting the applicants. He says yes, and it's not just that. Applicants who get accepted from such an exam wouldn't be useful to them either, as they are an imperial affiliated agency after all, and he refuses to forgive those who stay in the honorable name of the empire. She says that she gets it, and says that he acts up whenever the imperial family is involved, and she'll bring this to the council, but she can't guarantee it'll go through. He says that he appreciates her efforts, and that he'll excuse himself. She tells him to hold on, as she heard that a message from the imperial family will be arriving at his office, so he should go check it out. He smiles, saying that he understands, and heads out as she watches. She looks back down at the paper, and about how they'd be signing a waiver, and it applies that even if someone weren't to be killed during the exam, this wouldn't be considered a crime with the protection of the imperial family. Of course, this wouldn't necessarily change the nature of the exam itself. In the first place, the only people who were eligible to apply for the Shut Eyes are fallen nobles or commoners, and there have not been any issues with the exam until now, because it's easy to brush off complaints from people without power. She's sure Julian is aware of this, and this means that the reason he brought it up must be because he realized that the Elders Association and the Torso family were scheming something during the exam, and this must be his response to that. It's a message to them, saying that he already knows what they're planning, and he won't let it slide, and that he sure is bold. She wonders if this is his way of getting back at them. She then asks if anybody is outside the door, and the man enters the room, asking what she needs. She tells him to take the letter to the council, and he says understood. She says that he changed so much after that incident, and until now, he has always been called the imperial family's dog because of his loyalty towards them, and it seems that the beast, who had been obediently following his orders, has developed his own ego and started to break free from his shackles. This might turn into trouble, so she needs to keep an eye out on it, because Julian is a wild horse that she has no idea what to expect from. It jumps to Julian saying that he actually made it all the way to his office in the Shut Eyes headquarters. Normally, the Shut Eyes don't assign private offices since there's no need for them to be on standby. If such an organization assigns someone a private room, he wonders just how extravagant it will actually be inside. When he opens the doors, he sees some really fancy dresses and then some creepy-ass decorations. He says that there are so many luxury items that have nothing to do with work, and this is even worse than his house, so he must actually be insane. They all look so expensive yet so hideous. He really can't bring himself to like this bastard at all, as he has the worst taste. He steps on something on his way in, and he says that this dude is a hoarder. Someone then knocks on the door, and Julian tells them to enter, as we see none other than Lazarus saying that he has come to deliver a letter from the imperial family, and he sticks it out towards Julian. Julian says this must be the letter the captain was talking about. As Lazarus excuses himself to leave, Julian tells him to wait. He says this timing is perfect. He needs to load the sculptures on the carriage he took to get here, and they shouldn't be too heavy. Lazarus looks panicked, asking if he means all of them. He says he can't believe it, and he gives him a task once more, and he guesses he won't be a trainee for much longer. He tells him that he'll move them immediately, and Julian just wonders why he's making a weird face. As soon as Lazarus picks up one of the treasure chests, he bumps into the creepy doll statue and falls face first onto the ground but manages to protect the chest that he was holding. Julian is just surprised and says that he really is a handful. Lazarus immediately picks up a sword and puts it to his throat, apologizing, saying that he can't believe he messed up in front of him. Julian says there's no need for him to do this, and he thinks that he's too scared, so he'll try lightening up the mood with a joke, saying that cleaning up would be the bigger hassle if he died here, and that he should just continue moving them. Of course, Lazarus didn't take it as a joke and says okay. Julian says that he's scared of him because he's in this body right now, but he guesses that's to be expected, and he'll just read the letter while he waits. The seal is of the imperial family, just like it was in the game. It says it's for Sir Julian, and it mentions his family name and the Shut Eyes, and Julian just gives us the too long didn't read since he can read the language, which he's thankful for, and it says that if he's recovered, then he should return to work. And he feels like they're just trying to slave him away, but they sure did sugarcoat it. Not that he is complaining. He thinks getting field experience is important right now since he has not found any lead on the Moonlight Sword. The mission is the restoration of a resonant stone. He starts to explain to us about resonant stones. He says inside of the game, there exists a lot of demons. After the demon god Barbados died, his remnants, which either parasited living beings or manifested into physical forms, came to be known as demons in this world. They then began attacking humanity, and the items that are used to subdue them are these stones that we were talking about, the resonant stones. They are the great legacy of mages, and he wonders how they were able to make stones using mana. Since he is not a mage, the mission probably means that he needs to protect the mage that will be restoring the stone. He doesn't see a reason to refuse, although there is a risk associated with fighting demons. If he succeeded in this mission, the recent suspicions and rumors regarding him will likely die down. He wonders who the mage that is protecting it will be. Handling a resonant stone requires skilled mages, and he hopes that they are just someone decent. It then jumps to Eileen stretching at the Imperial Palace. She asks why she has to continue writing these even after becoming a professor, and constantly having to prove oneself is just the life of a mage after all, but the Imperial family is way too demanding. Somebody taps on her shoulder, and she turns, wondering who it is, as they ask what brings her to this place. Eileen calls out to the girl, who we learn is named Diana, saying that it's been forever, asking how she is. She says that she must be swamped as the youngest professor, and it's so hard to see her these days. Eileen laughs, saying that she doesn't need to flatter her like this. Diana asks if she has time, because she's going to a tea party, and she wants to invite her with. Eileen says that she's sorry, but she needs to work on her thesis. Diana says that she sure is diligent, and it brings her back to their student days, and nothing has changed. She notices that she seems down, but she spots something behind Eileen as well, and points towards it, saying that she recognizes it as Senior Julian's carriage. Eileen turns, saying that she's right. It's a crest that's only used by Julian's family, and Diana says that she heard he was on death's door, and he sure is a persistent guy for being here already. Eileen looks annoyed, saying she agrees. Diana can tell how she's acting and says that this must be what she thinks it is, and surely this doesn't mean she still has feelings for him. Eileen says that she has no idea what she's talking about. Diana laughs, saying that she was such a sweet girl back then, and begins talking about how when she heard the rumor that she'll never be rejected if she confesses, she called Julian all the way over to the cherry tree and did it. Eileen tells her that they should go to the tea party together, and Diana says that she thought she was busy. Eileen awkwardly laughs, saying that she realized she had some free time, and starts to turn into a tomato. Diana says that she doesn't need to be embarrassed about it, as everybody liked Julian back then. Eileen says that she's actually right. Thinking back, he was completely different from the man he is now. He became like that after he returned from the Northern Front and joined the Shut Eyes, and he's changed a lot. Diana tells her to go say hi to him, and she says that just because she used to like him doesn't mean she still does, and she also doesn't have to see his face for a while. Diana asks why, and Eileen starts to summon something using magic in her hand, saying that she won't be back in the palace for some time. As she begins to hold an envelope, Diana recognizes it, saying that that is a letter from the Imperial family. Eileen says she's right, and they gave her a mission. Diana asks what it is, as Eileen tells her that she is in charge of the restoration of a resonant stone. Oh boy, is she in for a surprise. It then jumps to some knights marching, saying that there's so many of them here, wondering if they're about to meet somebody important. One of the knights' buddies says that even the Blue Lion Knights are accompanying the Shut Eyes, and it's said that even Sir Julian is personally accompanying this mission. The guy's surprised, and he says that surely he's heard the rumor about him losing some of his memory due to an injury. But it must have been made up by people who dislike him. The dude says that he had a feeling it was something like that, and there's no way someone who is so demon-like could be injured. Julian says that he made the right choice doing this mission, as public opinion is in his favor. Some men then approach him, thanking him for joining them, and we are introduced to both Fern and Heinrich, members of the Blue Lion Knights. Julian says that the Blue Lions are working hard as usual. They say that they should safely escort the mages to their destination. Julian says that there's no telling what might happen and begins laughing, and it's because he's scared about demons. But, of course, they're scared of his expression and go along with it. Fern then tells him that he and Heinrich have a question, and Heinrich asks if he would consider taking the carriage to Gielen. Fern says that he should leave the escorting to the Blue Lion Knights and travel comfortably instead. Julian thinks about it, saying that it does sound like a pretty good offer, but it doesn't seem like it really is for his convenience. The Blue Lion Knights are an imperial regular unit, and unlike the Shut Eyes, most regular knights are made up of nobles. So they're making sure someone from a branch family doesn't stand ahead of them. Julian says that in the novels, everybody who goes to another world lives gloriously, but here he is, the villain stuck in this awful situation, and that traveling in a carriage does seem more comfortable than talking. Fern and Heinrich say that they're glad they're getting through this thought issue, as Julian agrees to go with it. Julian starts to look surprised after hearing who it is, and we see her walking forward, greeting everybody, saying that the weather is so nice today. She introduces herself by her full government ID, saying that she's in charge of the resonant stone repair. She spots Julian and is shocked. Julian then says about him riding in the carriage, he'd rather not do it. As Eileen begins blushing, she wonders why he's here, but more importantly, she could tell that he was avoiding her, but it's because he thinks she's a complete wild card, and it's uncomfortable not knowing what she's thinking. Fern and Heinrich are just surprised, wondering why he's changing his mind, and if he's asserting his own authority now. Fern grits his teeth, asking if he really caught on to his plan of placing him in the rear to oversee the mission, and as expected, he really is someone who survived in this chaotic imperial court without aligning with any faction, but still, he's just a collateral branch, and he says he's arrogant. Just because the royal family acknowledges him, he can't believe he's looking down on nobles, and that he should just wait and see. But, of course, it's just because Julian said that he had no idea it would be Eileen in the carriage, and she's just as uncomfortable with this as he is. He says given how things are, they need to finish the mission as quickly as possible, and it needs to be cleaned up fast, so he doesn't have to cross paths with her once more. After a while, they arrive in Gielen, and he says that this sure is a tiny city, but both Fern and Heinrich are just pissed. Julian says even though they came all the way from the capital, there's no welcome party. A man on the street spots them, asking if they are the people from the capital. Julian says that's right, and the dude welcomes him, thanking him for coming all this way, and that he'll guide him straight to where the stone is. As they head over towards a clock tower, we see stones floating in the air. A little later, Eileen begins ordering where the boxes go and the other stuff to get her operation set up, and she says that she's very sensitive to mana. The man from earlier asks if she would like to inspect the area that needs repairs, and she says yes. They head over as we see the crystal is damaged and has cracks all over it. She says this is rough, and it'll be hard to fix with just repairs, and they need to do a partial replacement. The guy looks surprised, and she tells him that the barrier will temporarily disappear, but not to worry since it won't take long. He says that he trusts her, and she begins to roll up her sleeves as she stretches her hand out, touching the resonant stone. She says preparation is now complete, and she just needs to inform Julian that the barrier will vanish during the replacement. And she really doesn't want to see his face, but she just needs to think of it as work, since she is a professor. Embarrassed, she decides to toughen up and calls out to him. She says that she has something to tell him as he starts to walk away from her. She just realizes he dodged her and tells him to listen, since it's important. And she says that she could tell he's been avoiding her, and she wonders what it is. She grabs onto his uniform, saying that this is too much, as they're here for official duty. And she needs to say something, so she just blatantly asks why he keeps avoiding her. He plays it off, asking when he avoided her, saying that it's just that she keeps persistently following him. She begins to get flustered, asking what's wrong with him, and he's so bold that it almost sounds reasonable. She says that's not what's important here. He asks her what is important then, and calls her a stalker. She starts to get pissed, saying that she's been holding back, but she can't believe this. They then hear someone screaming at the top of their lungs, and Julian looks scared as they yell, saying that there is a demon here. Julian begins to panic, and Eileen says that she told him that she was here to tell him about how the barrier was going to disappear, and that demons would appear, but he just kept avoiding her. They then hear more screams, as this time, Heinrich gets flown past them, crashing into the nearby wall. Julian turns, looking down at Heinrich, who might be dead. Julian looks back forward as his heart begins to sink. A chill runs down his spine, then he says that based on this aura, it is a two-horned demon. How the hell are they going to defeat this? Julian says that it doesn't have just one, but two horns, and that this sure is unexpected. Eileen runs over, asking what happened, and he tells her not to get closer since it's dangerous. She looks up, seeing the monster in front of her, and says that she can't believe a two-horned demon is here, asking why such a powerful demon is in this sort of place. She wonders what she can even do, since she doesn't know how to use battle spells, and the resonant stone isn't ready to be used either. The demon begins speaking enchantment table, sending out its little ghouls forward. One of them lands directly in front of Eileen. Julian tightens the grip on his blade and protects her from the attack. He tells her not to let her guard down, and that she must be naive to be shaken by something like this. He says that he'll take care of things here, and she should go focus on doing what she is capable of. She asks what he's talking about, and he points at her, saying that she is responsible for restoring the stone, and he is responsible for protecting her, asking if she was so startled that she forgot what they came here for. She runs away, saying that it'll take 7 more minutes. Then she calls out to him, and he asks what she wants. She begs that he doesn't get hurt, and she can't use healing magic. He says it'll be difficult for him to get hurt in this situation, and even though he said that just now, the truth is that he's hella scared. He didn't expect to face a two-horned demon as part of his field experience. He can't run away because there are too many people watching, and bad rumors will spread about him, and if it were the real Julian, this much would be easy. Fern begins to run in, telling Julian to wait, as the Blue Lion Order will take this demon down. He and his boys start taking care of the small ones, marching forward towards the giant one. He says with this, they can just keep chipping away, and slowly take it out. He then starts laughing at Julian, asking if he's scared because of the demon, saying it's not like him. Julian says that's right, and begins laughing, and Fern is just surprised, asking why he's laughing in this situation. He reminds himself that he's Julian, saying that if he was in this kind of life and death spot, that there would be nothing for him to be afraid of. Rather, he would be enjoying himself, as the demon comes in for an attack, directly towards Julian, who is releasing his aura. His trait of exceptional swordsman activates, and he soars through the air, cutting the demon's hand, but the attack also echoes all the way up through its arm. Fern says that he can't believe he did so much damage with a single strike, and that's impossible. Julian starts to get into character, as the demon's blood flies onto his face, and he says that he's glad this is working. He then runs forward, and leaps into the air, directly in front of the demon once more, and starts to continue his onslaught, and we see him cutting off some of its horn, as he is getting fully absorbed into this. The demon looks up at him, and Julian realizes that he made a mistake, as its fist comes flying straight in, and smacks him in the chest, sending him flying backwards. Julian begins to spit up blood, seeing that it hurts so much he can't even breathe, and he guesses that he bit off more than he can chew, and if that's the case, he knows what he must do. The demon's eyes once more charge up as it goes in for an attack, slamming at the ground where Julian is standing. All we see is the debris, and the Blue Lion Order wonders if Julian was defeated. Fern says there's no way he could defeat the two-horned demon by himself, and it's now his turn to take command, but one of the men yells, telling him to look over. And when he does, we see his figure appear in some shadow, as his sword now has a blue aura around it. The men immediately recognize it as being the Moonlight Sword, but we know that it's the imperfect version of it. Everybody else though is fully under the illusion that that's what it is. Julian says that it's not even half as powerful as the real thing, but this should be enough of a handicap as he begins charging forward directly towards the demon, full of laughter. But the demon, with its own little cackle, comes in for an attack which Julian sidesteps. He says despite it being so large, its attacks sure are fast, but he's seen through all of them because he is Julian, and he's going to try using his ability, which is the trait of insight. As the attacks begin flying in towards him, he smiles, and with the minimum required movements for each one, he dodges all of the attacks one after the other, as he can see the trajectory of the attacks. The Blue Lion soldiers are just going crazy at the fact that they're witnessing him pull a Muhammad Ali, and Fern looks nervous, saying that he sure does live up to his power. Back to Eileen as the final piece of the crystal being put back in, and Eileen says that it's done as we see a giant magic circle around it. She runs over to the ledge, yelling, saying that the barrier will be activated again soon. Crystals begin to form around the demon, and Julian says that looking away in the middle of a battle sure is dumb. As the demon looks up, Julian says that he'll make sure that it doesn't live to regret this moment, and the demon realizes it's done for, as we see a giant blue wave of aura flying outwards as Julian starts to completely destroy the two-horned demon with a zigzag type pattern, leaving Eileen speechless, but so are the Blue Lion Order, as we see the slice directly down the demon's head then splits into two pieces, as it just got deleted. Julian resheathes his blade exactly on cue for the meat chunks of the demon to land on the ground behind him. Who the hell is cleaning this shit up? He begins sweating and can't believe that actually worked. He can tell everybody's scared of him, but it makes sense as he is a villain after all, and it's obvious they'd fear him after seeing his power. One of the soldiers calls out to him, and when Julian asks what he needs, they run over, grabbing onto his hand, thanking him. The soldier says that he thought they were all dead back there, and they begin cheering him on. Julian says he never expected this, and even Fern thanks him for his hard work. Julian smiles, which makes Fern feel uncomfortable, and Julian asks if he could leave the rest to him, as he's not used to these situations. Fern says yes and says that Julian is different from everybody else. He stands out even among nobles, asking how he can be so calm after defeating the two-horned demon, and he sure is not human, and he means that as a compliment. It jumps to Julian heading to a nearby forest, and he takes a seat by the pond and lets out a fat sigh, saying that was ridiculously dangerous. The fear and panic he felt when he was facing the demon was honestly way too much, and that it's so scary, his hands are still shaking. And the feeling he had when he cut through the demon felt awful, and he wonders how Julian got through these situations like they're nothing. And he says that he was acting so similar to the real Julian that he's even scaring himself, and he wonders if his thoughts are changing because his body has changed, and he wonders just how strong he actually is. He opens his status window, saying that the ability that he unlocked just now came from his knowledge of Sihu and Julian's body's experience, and that the two of them combined, giving him the ability of insight, showing him his enemy's weaknesses. He says with this trait, he will be able to ease the suspicions around him. The only problem is that the moonlight sword is incomplete. He looks down at his blade and starts to unsheath it. Looking at the damages from the fight, he says that he even left scratches on it. He had to use a large amount of mana at once to activate the moonlight sword, and neither power nor stability matched that of the complete one. As he's hung up on the stability portion, he smiles, saying that he's actually got a great idea. And then jumps to somewhere else as we see a lot of flags and robed people. As a familiar face enters the room at the Noble Elders Association, a man tells him he may sit, and we see Horan sitting there shaking. The man asks if he's telling him that Julian really figured out his plan, and Horan is just absolutely trembling, unable to speak. At some point, Horan finally speaks up, saying that yes, he did, as that seems to be the case. The man says that he knew his uselessness would eventually bring them trouble, and if he weren't related to the current family head by blood, now he would have been killed. Horan apologizes and calls him Lord Ern. Another man tells Ern that the Shut-Eye's movements have been strange lately. They seem to have submitted a proposal to the Imperial Secretary's office. From now on, when conducting the entrance exam, the responsibility will not fall upon the instructor, and even if they were to kill somebody, they will not be held responsible for their death under the name of the Imperial family. Ern looks surprised, and somebody else slams the table, saying that this is just speaking on behalf of Julian. They're all agreeing, saying that they can't believe he would do this when he's just the dog of the Imperial family, and that's pretty much just his warning to them. But they also tell Ern that this is an opportunity for them. He asks what they mean. Specifically, he asks somebody named Lord Aiden what they mean by that. Aiden says that until now, Julian only followed orders from the Imperial family. But if he starts doing things on his own accord like this, there are bound to be changes. We get a cool little symbolism of him taking off his own shackle, but it actually injures him in the process. Aiden says there might be a way to use him compared to the past when they sent him away front, and that they should just keep their eyes on him for now. They ask if Aiden really just wants to let him do what he wants. Aiden says yes, and begins laughing, saying that they should just wait for a bit. Back to Julian, he says that the mission didn't take much time, but he's tired because he used so much mana. As we see, his plants are all healthy. He's happy about it, saying that seeing the room decorated the way he likes brings him peace of mind. He's glad that his plants are doing so well. A lot of things came out of this mission. He not only proved the ongoing rumors about him wrong, but he also might have gotten an even greater asset as he opens the chest that Lazarus carried, pulling out a crystal. He says that he probably found a way to complete the Moonlight Sword, and it will be using this gemstone. He thought of this idea after seeing the resonant stone. In the game, every object has the ability to absorb mana. This is especially the case for gemstones produced in the Empire, as they have the highest mana conductivity and capacity. This is why the resonant stone works so well. He would borrow the idea of imbuing mana into the stone, and says that what if there is a layer between him and his sword? A layer that acts as a mana channel. As the gemstone shatters, he says that he would need to find the gemstone that fits his mana well, as he completely disintegrates the one he was just trying. There's a knock on the door, and he says it must be dinner time. He wonders if it's the butler, telling them to come in, and we see none other than Lazarus, asking how he's doing. Julian says that he keeps seeing him so often, and Lazarus says that the captain wants him to visit the Imperial Secretary's office and make a report. Julian asks if he's certain, and Lazarus says yes. Julian then stands up, saying if that's the case, he should put these gemstones back in the storage, and he guesses he needs to complete the Moonlight Sword some other time. He wonders if the Imperial Secretary's office is that curious about what he's doing, but says it makes sense with the rumors surrounding him. As he goes to leave, Lazarus calls out to him, and Julian asks what he needs. Lazarus asks what to do with the shattered gemstones, and Julian tells him to throw them away, but Lazarus says they are precious, but goes along with it anyways. It jumps to him at the Imperial Secretary's office. He says it's very fancy, unlike the Shut Eyes building, and he tells the receptionist who he is, and he's here to meet Sir Sedan Orby from the Imperial Secretary's office. The man says that Sedan is currently in a meeting with another guest, and he should wait in the waiting room. Julian says he understands, and it seems they have a guest before him, and is probably someone of a higher status. He heads into the waiting room, saying he didn't get a chance to see it in the game, but this room is fancy too. As we see a sword laying on the couch, he spots it as well, wondering what it's doing stuck here. He says this doesn't belong in such a fancy room. It's very clunky, but he can tell that the user is someone very skilled. He starts reading a phrase on the side that says, "A strong body harbors a strong mind," and recognizes it as a woman tells him to take his hands off of the sword, calling him a lunatic. He immediately recognizes the voice, saying that he doesn't even have to turn around to know. And the woman says that the sword was given to her by her teacher. He says this is one of Hayden's disciples, and in the game, she was killed in the hands of none other than Julian, very brutally at that. And he sat there watching as she drew her last breath. But the sword is none other than hers. Her name is Rin Ronbell, and she might be important for him to figure out how to get out of this game. So far, there honestly hasn't been a ton that's happened yet for me to really yap about, but I'll talk about the things I do like about the series pretty briefly. It's not that unique in terms of the whole getting sucked into a game premise while being the bad guy of the story. We've seen that before. But what I do like is the fact that, unlike other possession stories where the protagonist just wakes up in a new world with no way back, we know that in this one, he will most likely return home at some point. He just has to do what the devs wanted. That's a pretty interesting, because maybe he'll become too attached to leave. There's not much character development to really get into yet, but I do want to note some of the things I actually like about the character interactions so far. In a lot of these series where a regular guy is put into the body of a total scumbag, you get a ton of misunderstandings. And honestly, they're pretty funny. Like, he'll try to be nice, say something kind, and because he's got this evil, menacing smile, everyone just takes it as creepy and villainous. And that's definitely happening here with Julian. Real quick on the topic of him being the villain of the series, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't a villain at all. Think about it. Maybe these misunderstandings didn't just happen to the current Julian. Maybe they happened to the original Julian too. Obviously not to the same degree, but based on how snobby and assholey some of these characters are, maybe Julian just started taking them out because they were the real villains. Could end up being some big plot twist in the end. Just a theory. We'll see where it goes. Back to the character interactions, I like how Sihu cared for his plan in the beginning, but then also wanted one in his room as Julian. And now, in the latest chapter, we see that he's got exactly that. It's a nice little detail. It also shows how he's slowly getting accustomed to acting as Julian, and he's actually doing a really good job at it. We even saw him get a little too into character, which scared him when he killed that demon. Maybe we'll slowly see people's perception of him start to change after the wholesome moment he shared with the soldiers. Maybe that's foreshadowing. Now, quick tangent, there are little bits and pieces of symbolism scattered throughout the series. I'll just use the recent example with the chains. When Aiden was talking to the others and said it might not be a bad thing that Julian is unchained now, that was pretty loaded. Basically, he was saying that now that Julian is a dog who's off the leash, they might need to take action to either rechain him or put him down. If he's a rabid dog, they need to handle him properly. Subtle, but definitely there. I do hope we get to see more interactions between him and characters like Odwin, who instantly noticed him acting weird. And Eileen, too, since she's most likely the female lead. If they ever have an actual conversation, I wonder if she'll notice his change. Maybe one day he'll even tell her the truth. Lots of what ifs, but we'll see how it plays out. Now, as for the combat, it's not anything fancy or groundbreaking, but it's not bad either. It could be improved in terms of fluidity, but it's enjoyable. The pacing seems solid so far, and we're progressing forward at a nice, steady rate. He's still learning more and more about Julian's body and trying to overcome his own limits to fully master all of the power inside it. There's a lot to look forward to in terms of growth. And while it doesn't feel like the overarching story has really progressed much yet, this arc with the Elders Association getting destroyed could end up being pretty enjoyable. I saw some people commenting about how he has so many hours in the game but still seems so clueless and powerless. But honestly, I feel like that makes sense. Think about it, if any of us got thrown into a world we only know as a game, where every little thing could get us killed, we'd probably forget a ton of stuff, too. Add in the pressure of demons being real, and it's not hard to believe he'd panic a bit and miss some obvious cues. It's pretty realistic, in my opinion. Overall, the series is enjoyable so far. It's still really early, so there's no definitive answer on whether it's going to stay good or get worse. But if it continues at this pacing, we could end up with a nice slow burn where we get to actually grow alongside the main character. I saw some people complaining about the slow pacing, and honestly, if you hate slow-paced series, go read some Chinese manhwa. Personally, I love series that hook you with world building and a slow burn progression. It makes those big moments hit way harder. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this series continues to evolve. Let me know what you guys think so far. I always enjoy reading your takes in the comments. If you've watched till the end, comment, create, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.